So greetings and welcome back. In this section of our day, we're going to speak about power and empowerment. We saw that at the end of the video of Robert Chambers yesterday, he said that this was another form of power, the power to empower. And so to get us started in our reflection, we're going to share with you the first 6.5 minutes of a video that was made by the European Association of Conservatoires, where you will see various people from all over Europe speaking about their experiences of power.
AEC would like to open the discussion on power relations in its member institutions. We asked several people with different roles in the institutions about their feelings on this theme.
Actually, I feel empowered as a colleague when I can make some propositions, when I feel heard.
Is to feel like my experience is valued and that what I have to say is taken into consideration.
The driving force for me is when you feel that you contribute on a personal level and that you feel that you have some feedback of energy, that this sounds interesting. This is what we need for our institution, for our students.
I feel empowered as a music student when I remind myself that my teacher is there for me and not the other way around, and that I have the power to choose my teacher.
I work in academia. The main disempowering factor is the academic fashion that limits intellectual freedom. There is nothing I can do about it.
I feel discouraged or threatened where top-level management don't listen to the pulse of what's happening underneath.
I can feel this kind of problem when we are in a lack of time, for example, because we are not really pedagogic when we are in a hurry. So I can be told, do that, or I can myself tell, do that, and without explaining what the meaning of the task I ask or I am asked.
When people feel like they don't want to say anything because things never change, that's a very toxic way of existing.
Because when you work as a teacher or an IRC, you build up trust between yourself and the students and the projects or whatever you're working around. And when someone comes and just within a clear cuts these connections between you and the people you're working with, I feel personally I lose it totally.
Well, what worries me a lot is the impact that very few people can have on your career. So, well, right and wrong is one thing, but my career is another thing. So I worry that I might at some point not speak up because I need the job or I need my freelance contacts.
When it comes to people questioning you as a person, that's something tricky to deal with, and still are.
When I first heard about the power relations theme, I didn't relate to it. Then I learned to acknowledge problems that I did not even suspect I had.
I don't think power relations are all about gender.
I think that discussing power relations is really important because there are, I think, some often subconscious power structures that need to come out in the light. And to acknowledge that these are actually there is the first step towards erasing them.
I feel like there needs to be a structure where people know where their place is, but you can lead differently. And so I think we need to develop the leaders, so that they don't lead through power and they lead through something else.
For me, the main point is about creativity. Creativity for students, but creativity for us, teachers. And if we feel free to invent, to try, artistically or not, I think the power relations could be interesting and not something we have to deal with in a bad way, you know.
My conservatoire dream is that everyone is able to engage with music and the creative arts, free of stigma regarding religion, race, sexual orientation, or gender.
Everybody would be adults working together, you know, students, teachers, office professional. All these people would be adults working together for the students, but without bad hierarchy.
Dream Institution is a place where differences are welcome and people feel empowered to talk to each other across differences.
I think also student representation is a very big part of this, because if you have students in every part of the decision making, this would force openness in some way.
Trust. You trust people, you flatten out the hierarchy, you got a mission, a goal.
So instead of shutting down arguments or ways of being or ways of understanding life, to build an environment that is respectful, and so you can have constructive dialogue across differences, which I think is the only way to learn.
It is important to understand that power relations will always play a role, not just in a negative way, and that awareness of and transparency around is most helpful to all involved.
So thank you. This is designed to nourish your thought processes, and we're going to engage in an exercise where you're going to work on your own for about 10 minutes. And the exercise is the following. First, write down for yourself an example, a personal example of empowerment. And secondly, what might be your first step to affect change in your institution? So the first question is your own personal experience of empowerment. And the second is, what would be a first step you could take in your institution? And for the second question, if possible, we'd love it if you could write on the board, which Esther will share, so you can see easily how to get on it. You don't have to share your own personal example unless you really would like to. We'd love to hear from you. But this is really designed to get us thinking about how concretely we can start moving forward. So we have 10 minutes now, and we will come back at 10 to 12, and then we will be breaking up into working groups. Thank you. So welcome back, everybody. I hope that this has been a good moment of reflection for each of you. And we already see that the concept board is filling up. And for those of you who have problems with the concept board, please don't worry. You can send us your notes on the chat or however you would like to send them, and we can put them up on the concept board. What I'd like to do is, for just a few of you who feel so inclined, to invite you to give an example of what your first step might be in your institution. Not everybody will have to speak, but it's just if we have a couple of examples, that would be really nice. Some people had a lot written on the board. Yes, I'm just trying to see your name. You've got your, with the harp. Is it Aneta?
Aneta.
Yeah, you've taken off your name, but okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I had some problems with the board, so I would like to say it quickly. So the first step, what would I like to do for the institution? I think to make more meetings in every department. Yes, the time is our enemy, I think, and more meetings to talk to each other will lose many problems and will help for us all. So more meetings for the departments.
So are those meetings with teachers or teachers and students?
The first step maybe the teachers, the professors, the teaching staff. Yeah.
So communicating more.
Yeah.
Another example? Laura, did you want to speak?
Yes, hello. Yes, I was having some problems with the concept board too. Sorry, so I don't know whether I managed to write something or not. My comment would be maybe taking some courses or taking a course for politically correct usage of language for both the staff members and students.
So educating.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Who else would like to jump in? Some people we haven't heard from for a while, I don't know. Juan Camilo, do you have a?
Hi, so yeah, I was thinking about something that occurred to me like a couple of years ago. I had like a serious problems in my vocal folds because of gastritis. It was like really strong. My vocal folds were all burned out. And I felt really empowered when the front desk, the teacher staff, at least my teachers and my colleagues actually helped me get through it with a few words, just helping me doing therapy and stuff like that. And then I thought about how important it is and how decisive it can be to have that people who will help you shape your career, your future, your decision. And so maybe a great step to start, at least at St. Louis, I mean, in Rome, is to create a safe space between staff members, teachers, and students, and even the front chair, to let this communication in this supporting environment to flow, as it is like that's the way you empower people, empower students to communicate, talk about your problems and the things you have without being scared of that, without feeling discouraged, without feeling that you could be attacked or maybe you can be left aside. Having maybe a counselor or someone that can guarantee that you can speak easily, whether you have a problem. Is not just students complaining about teachers and staff members, but also teachers saying things that they don't feel okay with, or staff members saying things like that, trying to figure out problems and to solve them in the easiest way possible without feeling scared of ruining things or just, I don't know, having misconducts and stuff like that.
Great. So this comes back to something that we talked about a great deal yesterday, the idea of being safer and now having a safe space, a protected space where people feel they can be honest. Yes, we have one or two examples that somebody would like to share.
Not really an example, but just another idea.
Can you speak up?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me? Now, better?
Yes, Louisa.
Yes? Okay. Yeah, exactly. So I don't have an example, but one thing I really liked about this assembly is that we really came up with these values that the conversation culture, so the listening and respecting and not judging and these kind of values. I think that really makes all conversations much easier and much nicer if people are constantly reminded of those. So I think for universities it would be nice to also establish like a set of values that they would like to see or that they would like to promote among staff and students, so that everyone is like on the same level and is also reminded of it again and again, because we tend to forget.
Great. So this is about shared values. I think that's a very important point. Can we have one more example before we go on to the next? I'm trying to see who looks like they might want to just jump in. Please don't be afraid. Joanne?
Hi. Well, when I was thinking about a situation where I feel empowered, I've just been given responsibility to lead a performance class for first and second years in our undergraduate string program in Dublin for the coming academic year. And in a way, if I think about it too much, it's a little overwhelming, the responsibility of talking to all of these students about performance experience and performance anxiety, and how to prepare for auditions. And whilst in my own experience from doing all of that, I know how to do that myself. And it goes back to what what somebody else said about training. I feel like we're moving into a more holistic approach to teaching, and the staff, including myself, are not necessarily completely up to speed with all of that kind of aspect of approaching music and approaching performance. So I would like to be able to empower them to deal with anxiety in the platform, preparing for auditions, breathing techniques, all of these things that I already do, but I don't necessarily have the backup to present that. So perhaps leading these kind of classes, staff could benefit from some training in these areas of holistic approaches and teaching performance preparation.
Thank you. I think this is great. We've had very different examples here, which come back to the question of being protected and being able to say, to speak without fear of retribution or anything, and that this happens when you have safe space and when you have shared values, and that we can also within our institutions look to supporting each other so that we can empower our students more globally in terms of their performance experience, and that we can also teach people about the value of language and what language is appropriate language and maybe less appropriate language. And we have the example in the chat. Important to meet the employees at different levels: a vice rector, dean's office employee, a person from the economics department, and a technical employee. People in various positions are not aware of what other employees are doing, and their superiors need to know what their work looks like. So we will be making a PDF at the end of the day of the concept board and the things that have gone on the concept board, but we will also add your comments. Those of you who do not feel comfortable with the concept board, please feel free to just share your comments by email or by whatever, by the chat. And now we're going to go on to another really, we hope, a very inspiring exercise, which is also about empowerment and about how we cultivate more empowerment. So in this exercise, we're jumping ahead about 30 years, and we're imagining a utopian future. So here we are in our best case scenario, and we want to invite you in the groups that you will be put in the 4 breakout groups you'll be with, to come up with your craziest ideas about what might be the best case scenario. And you could take this question from different points of view, from the point of view of a student, from the point of view of a teacher, from the point of view of the institution, from the point of view of a leader. So just be completely free. There's no good or bad. There's no anything. But if you were to go to paradise, what would you find in terms of power relations? So that's the first question. And the second question is, what could you take from these ideas today? And at the end of this sharing, we'll come back to the plenary, and I'll give you some further information about the day. And maybe at 2 o'clock, I will give feedback on what's come up in these working groups. So you're going to be in 4 groups right now. And once again, the question is, you are in paradise in 2050. It's a fantastic situation for musicians, for teachers, for students, for everybody. And so how does that look? And secondly, what ideas might you take from this wild list of ways of empowering, because this is all about empowerment, how you would empower in your institutions, with your students, with your teachers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a totally open game, and then looking at what you might take away from this. So we have 35 minutes, and we will come back in 35 minutes. Welcome back. I hope that you were all inspired by the wild ideas that you shared and by what you might put into practice. I know that our group will certainly have wonderful, wonderful ideas. What we will do is we will look at what you have all said and provide us a short summary at the beginning of the afternoon. It's a little bit too quick to do it in the next 2 minutes or whatever, 15 minutes. But I just thought I would give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be doing next and where this is all taking us. So just to remind you of our principal objective, once again, how can we improve higher music education's environment by suggesting ways to deal with power relations within our institutions, and what standards are realistic to set to achieve a safe and supportive environment, and we can say safer and more supportive environment in higher music education. So that's our principal objective. And we will be working this afternoon on drafting some statements, and you will be in breakout groups where you will draft 3 or 4 statements that are relevant to the question of power redistribution, or power balance, maybe is a better way of saying that, and also ways in which you can facilitate empowerment in higher music education. So just so that you know that this is not a simple exercise that's just for the sake of our filling up the space here in this assembly, this will be then forwarded in the form of recommendations to the sector. So this is concrete, where we become concrete. And we are also really hoping that with the information that you have gotten in the last few days, that you will be agents of change in your institutions, and you will consider what it is that you can do on your level to bring change. So before we wrap this up, I'd just like to know if there are any questions or comments. We're trying to be as open as possible. Please feel free to jump in. I think you're a great group. We've learned so much from you. Okay, well, in that case, I will suggest that we close this session and that we come back at 2 o'clock, and that you be ready and start thinking already about statements that you could imagine that would help with the notion of facilitating empowerment in higher music education and redistributing power or sharing power, or any way you'd like to put it. But these would be our first statements that have to do with the notion of empowerment. So thank you very much for your attention and for your participation, and we'll see you at 2 o'clock. Thank you. Bye-bye.